Hello. So, kind of following on a few of the ideas I've realized recently, I'm forming a new understanding of the nature of the issue that I've been trying to solve. So, what did I think was the issue previously? I thought that um, I'm bored, don't have enough energy, don't have enough interest or enthusiasm towards something, and that yields to being in a limbo state where you're just kind of stuck. You're not really living life. You're not really engaged with anything, and it's not really a state you want to be in. So I thought that I needed to solve the core root of the issue and find some sort of a meaning, and then if you followed the kind of different approaches or ideas that I've confronted and broken down in the videos. So I went through aesthetics, how they could be used as a solution to boredom, and then the issue with that. Then I went to trying to justify or find alternatives, whatever. Right? So a lot of the ideas I've broken down at their core are this. I'm really bored, and because of that I'm in limbo, and I want to and I don't feel like I have any energy to do things, at least not consistently, and I'm trying to find what allows me to um, feel alive, I guess, right? The insight or the idea I'm kind of coming onto right now is the issue isn't actually in boredom. What I think was happening previously was you have boredom, which is in reality and originates from a form of frustration. Um, you're not happy with how something is or with what you have, or you're not particularly thrilled with what you're doing. And that is a form of frustration, which creates a discomfort uh, in actions you're doing. For example, let's say I have a simple goal of I don't know. I'm gonna do a visual explanation of getting from point A to getting to point B, right? And I start doing actions that aren't bringing me closer. And I'm doing those actions, and I'm doing every single day 1 million actions or whatever. And I'm still in the same spot, and I haven't moved after months or days of trying. It's natural that I would get bored. It's my um, brain's way of kind of regulating myself. It's like this isn't working. I'm frustrated, and therefore I'm gonna stop allocating resources towards doing the stupid shit that isn't yielding any results. So it's a form of frustration that uh, manifests uh, in your brain stopping to deliver certain resources, your body stopping to allocate resources towards certain tasks. That's why you start feeling bored. So the metaphysics of being bored is what I'm doing isn't yielding the result that I want, therefore I don't can't justify allocating enthusiasm towards this thing. And that is healthy, that is not bad. You shouldn't, or at least, okay, I'll explain how I thought. I thought this was bad, and um, so I had this boredom, and then usually that frustration can be turned into a form of motivation or energy into doing something else. It could be sublimated into another craft, another action, finding a different strategy that could take you to point B. For example, you're trying to go from point A to point B. You're doing one activity, doesn't fucking work. You try that boredom creates frustration that makes you more likely to try other things and keep doing so until you find something that starts working. And then that once you start seeing things working, it's going to start allocating more enthusiasm. So being bored is a healthy response to bad strategy. You have to feel bored from doing non-impactful things. Otherwise, you're going to be happy and content doing non-impactful things. Right? It seems really dumb, but it's very simple how we function and very well designed or very well at its core. It all makes sense. It's all fairly logical. So, okay, we have this boredom. Why sometimes it can lead to uh, getting more motivated towards trying other things or finding other approaches, and sometimes you get stuck in a limbo where you're bored and you don't feel like trying anything. And what I think happens here is, or at least what I think my mistake was here, is I was hijacking this boredom. What does that mean? I was um, looking for cheap ways out of this boredom, for ways that, for things that would make me content. Um, just farming these little things that were that are like just cheap ways to stimulate your sense of progress or your sense of um, being alive, I guess. It's like little cheap things, um, which in a way become a form of addiction. It doesn't need to be a chemical addiction. It's not like fucking. Not all addictions are heroin or meth. There are things that you can get addicted to purely behaviorally because they are an whatever. I'm not gonna explain it. If you don't understand it, you won't understand it. So frustration leads to boredom, and in my case, what I think was happening is I was managing this boredom, or I was, how should I say, this boredom is actually a form of energy stored as frustration. It's like when you're really bored, you want to do something. Like you're really, really bored. You want to uh, go and do something. And how you release that. So, boredom on its own is a form of pressure. It creates pressure to find something else more interesting to do, which is a form of energy. If you look at what all energy is just a form of pressure. It's ways how states change. For example, heat is energy. What is heat? It's like a form of pressure. As in, it's uh how should I say? Let's say you have a dam, right? And there's water slowly building up. The levels of water are rising. This creates pressure, and this exerts more force onto the wall or whatever, right? If you have like a low water level or no water here, then there's going to be an excess of pressure going in one direction. But if you were to add water on the other direction, then they would cancel each other out, and the pressure would kind of negate itself. I mean, there would still be a lot of pressure going into the middle, but overall, if you were to look at it as a whole, they're negating themselves, right? So, in this sense, boredom is a form of pressure. It pushes you up against the wall and makes you want to do another thing. How, and there are different ways of relieving that pressure. For example, finding something interesting to do or finding a more effective approach to whatever you're trying to tackle will relieve that pressure. So that pressure can be converted into energy to do tasks that you want to do, or to it can be converted into another form. For example, same as uh, uh, the dams and the water. You could use that pressure to generate electricity. I don't know. You could put a water wheel or something. I don't know. You could do like a what they do like a flood gate or something. I don't know what they call them. Basically, to my understanding, you do like a little uh, tunnel or whatever, and you do some sort form of water wheel here, something like to convert the water into energy, um, the water pressure into energy, right? On a basic level, that's how it all works. So, um, heat generators work in the same way. You burn something that creates pressure by releasing steam, and then that turns the air water wheel. like it all functions in the same way, and so pressure can be turned into energy, but if you relieve it, then you don't have any energy, and you end up being stuck in limbo. So in my case, what was I doing wrong? I was relieving my pressure, and that was not allowing me to build up energy. That was not allowing me to channel it into something else. Um, Now that I'm reflecting, I actually don't think there's anything wrong with me. I don't think, like, on a fundamental level, all my core reactions are correct and they're what I want them to be. The only thing I have left to kind of connect is to stop looking for cheap ways to relieve pressure. I've kind of been working on this in the last few days, really avoiding those little things. And what I'm finding is I'm finding it much more difficult to entertain myself um, using those unless I'm doing something that I feel like brings me closer to uh, my goals or whatever. I just feel way more frustration building up. And I'm able to channel that frustration a bit more effectively, is what I'm noticing. So, in simple words, stop fucking brain rotting. It's a cheap way of relieving pressure. Stop watching porn or whatever. Stop fucking gambling. Stop fucking whatever the fuck you do to relieve pressure. Even talking to people is a form of relieving pressure. Like sometimes, yes, it's useful to speak to someone, but a lot of the time, you have energy, you go to speak to someone, and then after speaking to them, you just feel fucking tired. You don't gain any energy in an exchange with them. They don't tell you anything new. They don't um, push you. They don't offer you anything of value. You just speak to them, you lose your energy, or you lose the pressure that you felt, and now you feel a little bit more content with how you were. In terms of energy exchange, it was a complete drain and waste of time. So I will be way more careful with this. I will start paying attention to this. Um, there's so many. Now that I realize, all of the things have been slowly kind of just based on intuition, cutting away over the last year or so. For example, were all forms of how I was getting away from pressure. Now, one sec, I just had another insight. Maybe that's why self accountability is so important, or taking responsibility for your actions. Because what is taking responsibility for your actions in this context? It is you not allowing yourself to release pressure by blaming something on someone else. You're, by taking responsibility, keeping pressure on yourself, and in doing that, you give yourself more power. That's why responsibility is so um, useful for being powerful. Re- and a lot of people I've spoken to don't understand this. They like when I argue about ideas about responsibility, they always think about it from moral or ethical perspective. It's not about morals or ethics, you fucking retards. It's not. Personal responsibility is about your own individual performance. You take on personal responsibility not because you have a moral obligation to not be a fucking victim or whatever. You take it on because the alternative means that you will lose energy. It's not about whether it's justified or not. It's not about whether you were in the right or in the wrong for being a victim. No, it's not about that. It's about your own well being. It doesn't matter if it was your fault. Let's say you had something completely unsavory happen to you. There will never be a case where relinquishing a personal responsibility will yield you more power than keeping it. I don't understand why this is such a difficult concept. I've I know basically I don't know, whatever. People are stupid. Um, in simple words, um, if you're feeling bored or frustrated, that is natural. Try not to release pressure. Um, by doing so, you're preventing yourself from being able to channel that pressure into something that could yield an outcome that you might want. It keeps you, I don't know what the word is, content or whatever, distracted. Um, or at least become more conscious of when you are doing things just to relieve pressure. And real under and energy at its core is just pressure. So you shouldn't look at how do I build energy, what is source of energy or whatever, or not think of it in terms of something that you can attain and become like as a personal property. You can't just become energetic. That that's not a trait. Whether you're energetic or not is the result of whether there's pressure or not, whether your system is built in a way where there are leaks for pressure or there are not. That's not a personal trait. For example, you might be in an environment where um, the things that are causing tension and pressure you might not be adapted to in a sense that you don't really care about them. They don't create pressure for you. Therefore, you're not going to have be able to be energetic in that environment. But if you go into another environment and there are factors that create pressure for you, then you will be able to convert that into um, energy. this also checks out with, in general, what I've experienced a couple of years ago, where I had immense energy for a very long time. And I had so much pressure onto me that it permanently changed how I think. It permanently changed me in a lot of ways. That was all a byproduct of just opening the floodgates to extreme amount of pressure and not having any way of releasing it. And which is why I've become so good at releasing it, because uh, I had so much pressure that I basically, before that, I never needed to release it. I was never um like I was never even on the fucking internet. I was a lot on the internet, but I was not like an internet dweller. For me, it was not a way to I didn't know like any of famous people. I didn't know any of the rappers. Like people would look at me weird when I was like, "You don't know who Elon Musk is? What?" Like I swear to God, I didn't know who he was until I was like 19 or 20. Like because for me, mindlessly absorbing information, which is one of the ways you release pressure, was just not something I did. And because I already had another way of releasing the pressure, which was Counter Strike. When I stopped playing Counter Strike, I had no other way of releasing pressure, and well, even the period before that, I had so much pressure that I was basically going insane, and it was too much for that I was capable. It was more than I was capable of handling at the time, and that I basically, to not go insane, I had to come up with ways to release pressure, and then quitting Counter Strike was a really big form in which I was releasing pressure that I stopped doing, which made me look for other ways to release pressure. And over the last kind of few years, uh, I still had a lot of pressure because I was still pretty insane. I learned, I basically was constantly draining myself of that pressure, and now I have kind of fixed most of the things that I had. Um, I've addressed most of the beliefs, and I no longer have this tremendous pressure being caused by a whole bunch of delusions. I'm not crazy anymore, but I still haven't changed my release protocols or whatever. I'm still trying to use all of those things that I was doing to release pressure as if I had the same amount of pressure as before. I don't. And what is that causing? That's causing complete uh, loss of energy. It's all going away into these little things that I, for rational reasons, started doing to release pressure at some point. Except for now, it's no longer rational. It doesn't make sense. And so for me, what I need to do is reflect on these and stop doing them. And that's what I'm doing. And slowly build up pressure. So the point I was trying to make is not always too much pressure. There is such thing as too much pressure. You can deform yourself. You can break your own brain by having too much pressure. Uh, so it is important to address um, that sometimes. You should just be aware of what is causing pressure and how much pressure you can take and how much you want. You should be able to control it deliberately. It shouldn't be a passive thought because if it's passive, you lose control over it. You lose the ability to have an impact on whether it works in your favor or against your favor. It can destroy your life. Improper pressure management, whether it's too much pressure or too little pressure. So it's important to understand it and see it in this way so that you can manage it and control it. Um, I think that applies to everyone actually. People either have too little or too high pressure. There's almost no one that I know that has a I've seen that actually controls their level of pressure. Everyone just YOLOs it and doesn't really understand how to do so. Okay, I think I've made my point. So to reiterate, if you have too much pressure, yeah, go release it. You're gonna go insane. If you have too little pressure, you have a look at what things are making this pressure go away and stop doing them. And that can be a lot of, for example, let's say that can even be how you think. For example, let's say you have too much pressure. For you to think it's not my fault is a form of releasing pressure. Uh, you, so like not accepting responsibility. It's like it's not my fault. I don't need to think about that. That's taking away pressure from yourself, right? That might be useful. That might actually help you if you have an issue with too much pressure. You can't control it. Um, then if you take that to the extreme, nothing is ever your fault. You don't need to worry about anything. Then you get the other end of the problem, which is you've taken too much pressure off of yourself. Now you don't actually get any energy, and now you're not motivated. You're bored, but not uh, capable of sublimating it into something else. Sublimating. So yeah, I think that is explained. If you can't understand it, unlucky. Ciao.